Welcome friends and family, my name is Skylant and I'm excited to bring you my top 10 list for upcoming action RPG. Now, these games have not yet released. Some of them are a little bit playable, I've actually played a lot of these, but some of these games also I want to say, just disclaimer, bias, huge amount of bias, either because I played them already and I really enjoy them, or just because, I don't know, they just look cool to me personally, okay? So this is my personal list. However, I think that you're at least going to find one game on here, even if you generally don't like action RPGs, because, well, I've got a lot of different kind of games. It's not just one set type of action RPG. There's all these different subgenres. We got some JRPGs in here. We've got some platformy. Some are a little bit more grindy, looty based. Some are isometric. Some are not. And, you know, there's just all sorts of different kinds of action RPGs. Some are more online than others, etc., etc. I think you will find something interesting for you because of the eclectic mix of this list. Because, well, it's my personal list, and that's what I wanted to do. Hope you enjoy it. Let's have some fun. Let's get into the list. Coming in at number 10, we have a game called Guardians of Ember, and this is actually from the development studio that brought us Runes of Magic and then Dragon's Prophet. Two games that were really original in concept, but they kind of lacked a little bit of polish, and overall, they just kind of missed their mark. I think more people wanted to play the competing games, especially in MMOs. You know, it's a genre of huge, dramatic competition. Now, action RPGs, as even evidenced by this top 10 list, there's lots of different games out there, but luckily, there are so many different kinds of action RPGs awaiting in this list. However, Guardians of Ember looks, at first glance, somewhat familiar. It shouldn't be too dissimilar to others, but it is going to have a couple of really cool features that I really enjoy. You have class mixing, or at least dual class systems. You're going to have extended PvE with randomized dungeons, which I'm pretty hyped for, but my favorite fact about all this, information that we get about the game is that they kind of are splitting it between PvE and PvP. In fact, we're going to have multiple PvP modes with 1v1, 3v3, and 5v5. So, if we have all of this game, it's a full, well-rounded action RPG, I think that's going to fit very nicely in a genre that's completely dominated by PvE and an extremely linear type of games. Now, my number 9 slot, I'm going to give it to a game called Mu Legend. I actually did my first impressions on this game. I streamed it a little bit, and most of my complaints about the game really come from it just being in closed beta. A little bit of laggy. It was a little bit easy in ways, but in the end, from what I hear on YouTube, in comments and also on videos and on the forums, it seems that Mu Legend is actually very aware of itself. Okay, so the first impressions, it seems usual, and I probably will have to completely agree with that. But in the end, really, it knows that people just want to jump in. They want to play their core roles. The Trinity. They want to play, the very specific roles and classes that are tried and true, and people want to get to endgame instantaneously. Mu Legend allows you to do that. So while it might seem at first glance somewhat unimpressive, in the end, it's aware of what people want when they play these games. So mechanically, you will be satisfied, and you'll be satisfied quickly. Now, whether or not that gives the game less or more replay value, we'll have to see, but it is a very online and very social game. So being able to drop in or drop out sounds pretty good to me. And now the next game I want to talk about is going to be a single-player action RPG called Crosscode. Now this game, even though it is incredibly action-packed, and I definitely can liken it to Hyper Light Drifter, it has way more RPG, way more story than alike games. In fact, it reminds me of a lot of older Super Nintendo games like The Legend of Gaia or something like that are very involved with lots of text, lots of characters that you're going to see repeating faces all over the place, and it just graphically, it kind of looks like that as well. So it takes a lot of themes from older games and yet amps it up. The action is much more faster, way more mechanically intensive, especially because it is made as a PC game, and it just feels and looks, kind of just nostalgic, but brought in with modern standards, in my opinion. It's bigger and better than a lot of its competitors, and you can actually get into the game right now with early access, and you can even play their free demo, which I did, and which is why it's on this list, because hands-on impressions, hell yeah, dude. Crosscode's gonna make the list. It's a great action RPG, in action and RPG aspects. So next up on the list, we have a game called Scalebound. Scalebound is a game that I've been looking forward to for quite a little bit because it just seems so freaking weird. Now, at this first glance, maybe it kind of seems usual. There's a dragon and, fantasy, but then you start to look at the trailers and the gameplay and you notice that it's kind of hip and hopping, actually. Like, literally, the main character seems to be wearing headphones, and yeah, there's like this weird mix of sci-fi and fantasy, but it's also like kind of tongue-in-cheek, like it's a little bit humorous, a little bit. And anyways, this is going to be an action RPG that completely focuses on the action component, and it's also going to have some co-op gameplay elements to the game, so that leaves me pretty hype. It doesn't have to take itself too seriously. It really doesn't, especially coming from Platinum. I believe in them. I know, first glance, it seems like it might be a more serious, dragonish kind of game. Nope, it's way more, or maybe less than that. We'll have to see. Next, we have a game called Kingdom Come Deliverance, which honestly, I have no idea what to expect from this title. All I know is that it's going to be massive, and there's been a lot of games out there, like, Two Worlds, and even to an extent Skyrim, that kind of have promised massivity, but on a scale, a first-person scale, that we can truly explore all the depth and richness of this world. And then it turns out that instead of being an ocean or a wealth of content, it's more like a puddle, and it's more actually linear than it would first seem, or just have a bunch of repeating quests. So, Kingdom Come Deliverance, without giving too much away about the game because I don't really know myself, I will say that, hey, it looks pretty neat. It seems like a really interesting low fantasy game that could have some really good storytelling or mechanics, or just one or the other, maybe both, I don't know. It could go in a lot of different directions, and I just don't want to say too much. I don't want to get too hyped, but then again, it is kind of halfway on the list, so let me be honest with myself. I really want this game to work. Now, next up on the list, game that I'm extremely hyped for out of nowhere, I went from 0 to 100 instantaneously, is Nier Automata. See, I didn't actually play the original. I had no idea what kind of game it was. I just didn't know about it. I guess it was kind of niche, but holy crap. Seeing the forums explode and seeing all the gameplay from this new game leaves me pretty hype, especially since I was so excited for games like the new Kingdom Hearts and, of course, Final Fantasy 15. In fact, there's actually going to be some content collaboration between these two games, which is kind of exciting. Yeah. Anyway, so it's a Japanese role-playing game. It's a JRPG, but it's way action-packed. Okay, huge. It's developed by Platinum Games. Huge action. I'm expecting some pretty awesome, spectacular gameplay, especially with the boss fights, absolutely. Anyways, I'm not really sure what I'm getting into with this game. All I know is that at least my eyeballs are going to feel real good while playing this game. So if you guys have played Nier, please let us know in the comments below what's to expect with the story. Is the RPG worth role-playing, or is the action worth getting hyped for? All I can go based off of trailers and stuffs, the answer is most likely absolutely yes. Alright, I think it's time we talk about Lineage Eternal. Now, personally, I think it's a really good idea that they're not making like a Lineage 2 sequel. They're actually kind of going back to their roots, and they're making a very online, I guess you can probably say it's MMO, action, RPG-ish type of game. But it's very important that they're not competing with Lineage 2. It's still super duper freaking popular and not really waning at all. So this game, I think taking those original design principles and then just super duper expanding on it would be freaking awesome. And that's what it looks like. It looks like we're going to have more enemies on the screen at any one time than any other action RPG on this list. It looks extremely massive for an action RPG, and it seems like it's going to be, well, just really action-packed. Now, one thing that I think is kind of really interesting is that we're going to be switching characters. Instead of having a class combination system or just a single character to play, we have 4 characters that we can pick from, and they all have their own unique archetypes. So that's kind of cool and interesting, yeah? And there's a lot of other little interesting aspects peppered into the game that is really just built on this awesome foundation. The lineage of Lineage is kind of epic, and taking such a solid foundation and building upon it to such a degree, I think this is going to be one of the best games out there of all time. It could go either way, absolutely, especially with some very direct competition, but I still have very high hopes for this game. Now, coming into the third slot, and out of nowhere, is the game called Nioh, which, yeah, man, at first glance, it looks like a Souls-like game. We've had some before, and we're definitely going to have a lot more later on. But this game, isn't just like trying to do something totally radical and then just slapping on some Souls-like mechanics. No, this seems like players who actually played all the Dark Souls games, maybe even Bloodborne, Demon Souls, actually knows the real mechanics that make those games special and original, and took just those mechanics and then is actually expanding onto them, man. They're making this awesome Dark Souls Estus soup kind of thing, and they're adding in their own spices. I'm loving it. So yeah, it's kind of like an Eastern Dark Souls in a way, and they could have probably have made some money just making kind of a clunky, Asian Lords of the Fallen, if you know what I'm saying. But no, this actually seems like a genuine attempt to extend and expand the genre of Dark Soulsian type or Soulsian games. Now, we've had only just a brief few tastes of the demos that we got here for the PS4, and with that, YouTube forums blew up. My hype meter is engaged. I can't wait to get the full product. Coming in at number 2, I'm going to put Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. And I'm going to get right into the one point why I'm super hyped for this game. Not just because it's a Legend of Zelda title, right? The series probably could be accredited for a lot of the action RPG genre as a whole, but I'm excited for this game in particular because it's kind of going back to that design principle of taking, it's not a linear game. Okay, and maybe it will be. That's why it's only number 2, but it's supposed to be an open world game that's supposed to emphasize discovery, It's supposed to emphasize wandering around, traveling around, and actually taking control or advantage at least of the terrain. You know, there's actually screenshots of jumping off of cliffs, and then you know have the slow motion shooting the archery bows and throwing bombs down hills, and then literally cutting down trees to traverse the terrain, and just actual exploration is supposed to be a huge part of the game. And I always thought that it was part of the series, at least the original games and the first few games. Exploration was a huge component. And yeah, I guess if you look back without nostalgia goggles, it can seem kind of linear, but that was just the limitations of the hardware. More recent Zelda titles have been kind of a little bit more linear than I would like. Still fun, still puzzly, and still actiony, but I think a little bit gimmicky. Alright guys, time for my guilty pleasure, the one that I am completely biased over in every single way. It's gonna be number one. Lost Ark is the probably most hyped action RPG, at least for me. Now, I think a lot of other people would probably say in contention, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is gonna be or maybe even Neo, you know, for the hardcore Soulsian fans. But Lost Ark for me, dude, See, I'm somebody who really likes online play, and I know there's actually a lot of action RPGs on this list that have either co-op or maybe even they're like almost full-blown MMOs technically, but Lost Ark just seems like it has such production value that I cannot not put it at least in my top 3. But then it has a lot of features that really for me, it just kind of speaks to me. And there's some things like the classes, right? Just the flavor of the classes also is just sort of geared towards someone like me, okay? You have these classes and the aesthetics and just the mechanics and how the way the combos work and the way the enemies look and the bosses, just every encounter, everything about this game could say, yeah, it's good, it's nice, but the reason it's number one for my personal list is because personally, it just kind of speaks to me, and I really can't excuse that. We're gonna have giant cinematic type boss fights. The spectacle of the explosive abilities is truly fucking explosive, and then you have all the online interactions. In fact, the Lost Ark developers even say that this is really more of like an MMO that looks like an action RPG, where other action RPGs on this list are action RPGs that happen to be online. It's a little bit different. I don't think anybody can really contest the production value of Lost Ark, but to me personally, it just kind of evokes something in my soul. Can't really find the words for it, so I can just throw it, you know, at number 1 on my top 10 list. Alright friends and family, that's the end of the list. I'm sorry it had to end so soon, but we got other lists to get on to, and I hope you enjoyed this one, and I hope you enjoy the ones coming in the future. Action RPGs can be kind of polarizing. I got a lot of different kind of tastes as well though, friends, and I think you will at least find a game on here that looks appealing to you. Maybe you should get hyped for it just a little bit. Keep the hype alive, that's all I know, dude. I'm excited for these games. I hope you are too. Hope you had fun with the video, hope you had fun with the games, and friends, I will see you in the next one.